Scared for reals.
Hey, it's Chris O'Neill.
Adam Perry.
All right, supernatural comedy time. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire has hit theaters. And just so you know, Scared for Reals is on not only on YouTube, where you're listening to us right now, but we're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X. So feel free to comment, reach out to us, give us some feedback. And just a heads up, spoiler alert, because we're going to dive into Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and things will get heated up as we discuss this next installment of the Spengler family franchise. They decide to leave Somerville, Oklahoma, go back to where it all started, the iconic New York City firehouse. So help out the original Ghostbusters, who developed this top secret research lab. And then, they take busting ghosts to the next level. But they have an interesting discovery of an ancient artifact, which, of course, unleashes a lot of demonic, supernatural, ghost-like evil forces. So new and old must join forces together to protect their home, of course, but also to save the entire world. Adam, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Okay. So first thoughts, Frozen Empire. I did enjoy this movie. It's not without its issues and my critiques of it, but I did really enjoy Frozen Empire, and in the much like I enjoyed Afterlife. I really like the Spengler crew of Ghostbusters. I think they are a very good, strong team. Mm-hmm. They've done a lot of work, and in this movie, they've gone even further, building the characters so that you do actually care about them as a family and as a team. Yet again, using the original Ghostbusters in, I think, the most perfect way. They didn't eat up the screen, but they were there just enough to feel their presence and to have a slight impact on the movie without taking away from what is now the new crew of Ghostbusters. But we still got that nostalgia. We still got to see Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, Winston, and Janine. So again, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing them back in New York. I enjoyed that it was an original story. We didn't have to retread anything and bring us back into this world like we did in Afterlife. We were kind of just there again, existing in this Ghostbusters world with this new ice monster that was coming at them.
This ancient
ice monster. And I really like introducing the new technology. It gave us a real Ghostbusters feel for like the cartoon, which again, being a huge Ghostbusters fan that I am, I really liked that aspect of it, that they really doubled down on new technology and the technology of this Ghostbusters mythos and lore and world. Complaints I have on it, I think it was too long.
I agree with you.
I think it was too long. I think, especially in the middle where it started to drag, there were certain scenes that could have been taken out just to get to the point quicker. There were some continuity issues. Again, as we're talking, we're now getting into the spoiler section. Probably the biggest continuity flaw that I saw in the movie was actually with the original Ghostbusters. There's a scene where Ray Stantz podcast and Phoebe get in a little bit of trouble, and we see a really awesome scene, intense scene between Winston and Ray Stantz, and Winston's kind of giving a good tongue lashing to Ray. And the next time we see them together, it's the finale of the movie, and it's just like, where they could have put in a quick, hey man, I'm sorry, world's coming to an end. They didn't. They just kind of went about their business as if nothing happened. So, I mean, that was a big continuity flaw. You can tell that there was a lot of reshoots with this movie because it seemed like people just kind of magically appeared and disappeared in certain scenes. But other than that, I really think they had a a good plot, a good story. Again, I really really like the Spangler crew of Ghostbusters. Paul Rudd I thought was excellent in it, and I was actually prior to seeing the movie, I did an audiobook listen to the history of the Ghostbusters. It started with the first movie and it brought us all the way up to Afterlife. And or when they originally started talking about Ghostbusters 3 and having Ghostbusters 3 be a new team in the mid-90s, Paul Rudd was brought up. So knowing that and watching these last two installments and knowing that he's been finally kind of full circle with that is really cool. And I think he brings a lot to the movie and the Ghostbusters universe. So I was happy with it. Is it the best in the franchise? Obviously, no. You can't top the first and second movie. I think it was right on par with Afterlife. And I really hope we get a third one from this Jason Reitman led Ghostbusters franchise.
Now, when I go to a movie, Adam, despite my complaints about they don't need to make a sequel or anything like that, I clear my mind. I go to a movie, and I don't read any reviews or anything like that. I just go in, and I have no expectations. Mm-hmm. I literally have no expectations every movie I go into. And there was a couple of funny puns at the beginning, and obviously the visual effects, there are some that are pretty cool. It was funny to see Slimer show up a couple of times. And unfortunately, it just, like you said, it could have been like 25 minutes shorter. There's nothing wrong with a 75, 80-minute long movie. Mm-hmm. There really isn't. And I wish Hollywood would realize this. I mean, yes, you need to make an entertaining film, but you don't need to make it longer than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. You don't need to add extra scenes. So again, hopefully we're not spoiling the movie. You've already seen it, so that's why you're listening to us. The big problem is it seemed like everything was forced. It's some of the humor, mm-hmm. some of the lines that Paul Rudd had, and I'm not faulting Paul Rudd, because he's fun to watch in pretty much any movie, even though he's unfortunately typecast as the kind of klutzy, doofy guy,
Yeah, but I think that fits this character in Ghostbusters.
Kind of, he kind of mans up a little bit at the end, which is good. But mm-hmm. it's like it'd be nice to see a strong male lead in one of these Hollywood movies again. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen a real strong male lead in a movie in a long time. It's okay to have a character have flaws, but to make the male lead of the movie kind of clueless in some cases, kind of stupid, kind of klutzy. It'd be nice to just have like a strong male lead, once in a while. But that's not just a critique of Ghostbusters. That's pretty much every Hollywood movie now. But it just the whole forcedness. You have to check boxes of agendas. They didn't like kiss or anything, but when Spengler's granddaughter falls in love with this ghost, seemingly. Okay, friendly, yes, that's one thing, but they allude to a lot more. That could have been a lot more with that. And it was all to try to do a plot twist to try to trap her so the ice demon could have power. Mm-hmm. So through a human being, that chant that they magically discover in the second floor of the library, the old part of the library.
Right.
Again, forced. I mean, Oswald's he's fun to watch too. So it was kind of interesting to see him. I did chuckle a little bit with him because he is entertaining too.
Right.
You got all these Class A comedians, which is good, but I just wish they had better material to work with. So they go down, listen to the chant, and they need a human being to chant that. So the ice demon could come back to life.
Right.
I can't pronounce the demon's name off the top of my head, but there's a lot of different folklore in it.
Right.
That part was interesting. I wish
Yeah.
they would have actually focused more on that aspect of the movie. I think that would have been more fun. Mm-hmm. But it was just okay. You got to allude to a lesbian scene. Again, a human being and a ghost, which is very awkward, and it didn't really make any sense, and it didn't add up to anything. So that whole thing could have been left out. Because I mean, you look at Phoebe. She's very independent. She's strong-willed, very smart, but she makes mistakes, and it's okay to like make a mistake, but not have a whole subplot that really had nothing to do with the movie.
But I kind of disagree because it did make sense because she feels isolated from her family, so she finds companionship in the ghost. All right. Now, what I will say is they probably could have cut 2 or 3 scenes out.
Yeah,
with this ghost, but the ghost was important because the ghost was being used by the ice demon to lure Phoebe into releasing him. So it was a very important plot point. I think that, again, kind of focusing on the relationship between Phoebe and the ghost is where it might have dragged. Again, a scene or 2 less with that would have shortened up the movie and made it flow a little bit better instead of feeling like it dragged. But I think, again, the way the melodrama part of the movie plays out, where Phoebe is basically, she's being targeted, like right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Peck, yes, Peck is back.
Yes.
Mayor Peck is back. And he's awesome.
William Atherton.
Yes. From the start, you see like the whole world kind of dumping on Phoebe because he doesn't really go after the adult Ghostbusters, including her brother, who is now 18 and a legal adult. The focus is on her. And then everything that happens after, it seems like she's getting dumped on. So now she's feeling isolated. She's feeling alone. And, she finds companionship in the ghost. So, I mean, I think it's important. But again, and that's where the plot twist is important because she trusts this friendship she has in the ghost.
They really could have eliminated that whole thing with that ghost and just made her like want to prove herself. See, that's the thing. She wanted to prove herself. I'm just as worthy as you guys, but she was very stubborn in the way she went about it. Because she's a teenager. Be a kid. They say that a couple times to her, but there was no reason to have that ghost in there. She could have tried to if they just focused on her trying to do things on her own, like they kind of included the ghost, which is foolish, her trying to help out other people that call the Ghostbusters. They were out, I'll take care of that. They literally, that ghost himself could have lured her that way. The main demon.
He couldn't though, because she needed to be a ghost so he could control her.
Well,
and the reason why she becomes a ghost is because to have that moment with the other ghost.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the point of it.
It could have been left out, though. She could have gone into the lab herself eventually.
But what would have been the reason of her turning herself into a ghost? Again, the demon can't control the living, which is why he's using this ghost to make her turn to befriend her. To get her to convince, maybe turning into a ghost is a good idea so he can manipulate her. He can't manipulate the living. Yeah. This is why she had to turn into a ghost. So if that ghost isn't there and that friendship isn't built, what's her reason for becoming a ghost?
She could have gone to the lab after capturing the ghost, and she could have gone in there, mistakenly done something bad. One of the ghosts got loosed. Boom.
It had to be a human, though, that releases the ice demon.
They could have
a human had to speak the enchantment, which was Phoebe. That's why he uses the ghost to get to feet.
She had to get into the lab to do that. And as soon as she got into the lab, things could have happened in the lab, and then they taken over her and all that kind of stuff and possessed her. But she had to get into that lab first.
And become a ghost. So, but this is what I'm saying. If she doesn't have that friendship and the yearning for that friendship because she thinks that's the only friend in the world that she has, what's the point of her trying to become a ghost?
What was the whole point of having the movie to begin with? I mean, to me, it was just like
that really. The teenage girl finds a friend in the ghost. Screw the entire movie.
It was just so unnecessary to the point of the movie. They could have made it simpler. They complicated it. They really did complicate it. Why did they have to make it so complicated?
It wasn't complicated. I think it was dragged out too much.
Yeah, because they complicated it. They had too many subplots. You take out certain subplots, you make the movie tighter, you make it more focused, and you move into the destination. You got to get to the end.
Okay. All right. So you got an ice demon who can't control humans, but you need a human to say the incantation. How do you get there, Chris?
Well, you can get there in other ways. There's tons of ways they could have done it and manipulated the plot. It's fantasy. It's not based on fact. So they could have made something up. She screws something up in the lab by mistake. It does eventually happen because the demon got control. But that device is very powerful, and she could have messed around with it by mistake, and the demon could have got inside of her because she's messing around with that artifact, and boom, there you have it. It's so much simpler that way. I mean, you got to suspend belief when you're watching it. It's a supernatural comedy fantasy, and to add all this melodrama to it, to add a friendship which really doesn't add to anything, it really doesn't go anywhere. There was no point in having any of that in the movie.
There was a point.
This is an opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah. That's your opinion. My opinion is it could have been left out, and you could have had something else happen in the lab when she goes there. Because again, she's trying to prove herself. She's trying to prove herself. I got this. But she needs her family. And so when she tries to handle things on her own, she screws it up, but she helps them defeat the evil, and everything's good again. You have to get in that lab where that artifact was brought.
Right.
That part I agree with. But having this whole subplot of her befriending a ghost and potentially more than friends, it didn't go anywhere. It was kind of pointless. You didn't see the ghost go back to her family or anything. It was just pointless. She was not a necessary character. They forced it. They really did.
You can disagree with how they did it, but in context of the story and of the story of what we got, she is important because again, she's the one who lures.
That's your opinion.
She's the one that. It's not my opinion. It's what happened in the movie.
Yeah, well, it's already
what
been
happened
made.
in the movie, dude. It's
already been made. Okay, I'm not disagreeing with that. It's already done. It was just my opinion that it could have been tighter. You could have eliminated that ghost. You could have had an even more entertaining
I guess
movie.
what I'm saying is you don't have to eliminate the ghost, but it did drag. You didn't need to have as many scenes with it.
I honestly think you could have eliminated that particular ghost and the movie would have been fine. You could have made up some sort of thing. The screenwriters could have come up with something cool and dynamic that happened in the lab where she made a mistake and her body loses control and the ghost takes over and does the chant, boom. All the ghosts are out. And now she has that, oh my God, what have I done? And she feels bad. And then her family comes, helps her out. And then they get together, the new and the old. They kick some ghosts' butt. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That was one thing that was just so unnecessary, and it dragged the movie down. I mean, you didn't need that ghost. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying it's fact. Mm-hmm. Obviously, what I'm saying is not fact because it's not the way the movie ended up. I'm just saying, in my opinion, the movie would have been a lot better. It would have been more tighter. It would have been more focused. You add too many subplots to a movie that don't need to be there, and the movie drags. It doesn't matter if the movie is 3.5 hours. It doesn't matter if it's an hour and 45 minutes. You have too many unnecessary plots. It drags the movie down. That's just the way I felt.
Like I said, I think they didn't need as many scenes with the ghost, but the ghost was still important because it was the catalyst that released the ice demon.
Well, again, that's your opinion. You didn't need that, and you could have still had a fun story.
It was still a fun story.
No, I didn't have as much fun with it because it took itself way too seriously. The first Ghostbusters did not take itself too seriously. There were some serious elements in it, but the way it was presented, the way Reitman directed it, the way it was written, everything clicked. Mm-hmm. You know, they didn't take the material too seriously. They were having a fun time with that movie. But at the same time, you know, they were making a movie. And it is a comedy. It's supposed to be funny, and there wasn't a lot of humor in it. And the humor that was in it, some of the dialogue, some of the humor, it just felt contrived. There were parts of Afterlife, I will admit, I gave that one 2.5 stars. There were some good moments in it. And again, that was too long. They try to make these movies at least an hour, 45 minutes to like 2.5, 3 hours. So they in theory think they're giving you more bang for your buck, but they're giving you too much. Just give them a good story. You don't need to add all of these complications to make it good. Keep it simple, but make it effective, make it fun. And I just didn't have as much fun with this. I wanted to, because when I see Ghostbusters, I think of the first 2 movies. Yes, the second one wasn't as good, but it was still fun. But, and after that, it just, they waited too long. But that's just the way it is.
Right.
I'm just bringing out one thing that could have made the movie tighter and better, in my opinion. Again, this is just my opinion. It doesn't make it fact.
Right.
If we all agreed, it would be a boring world. But yeah, that's one thing I thought they could have they didn't need that ghost character. And of course, we're talking about Melody. Were there anything else you think, like you said, they could tighten up some other scenes? What are some other things?
They drag their feet with the counterparts of the ice demon, the fire thrower.
Yeah.
They could have taken a scene or two away from that angle and just made it tighter.
Right.
And gotten to the point quicker. Same thing with the Patton Oswalt. It dragged. His scene just dragged to get to the point where
he was fun. He's fun, but at the same time, it's like he's just a catalyst to drive the plot, and it's like you wasted the guy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I think they had 2 different movies going on, okay? 2 different movies. That was the problem.
And like I said, you could definitely tell that there was recuts and reshoots just by watching this. I would really be interested to see if they do release like a Reitman cut when the DVD comes out.
Even longer.
Well, I mean, just to fill in some of the holes.
Again, they had an idea for 2 different movies in this, okay? You take a look at Phoebe, coming-of-age story. And then you have Kumail in there who plays Nadim. I mean, that guy is a very talented comedian actor. He's a very talented writer as well. Right. You have 2 different story arcs. You could have made them into 2 different movies and it would have been okay. You really could have.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, there's a disaster in every single Ghostbusters movie. So come up with a different disaster for Phoebe to come of age, okay?
Yeah.
And then you make a separate movie with the Fire Master and the Ice Master. That in itself was an interesting story, but they didn't really develop it that much. It was kind of just, here you go.
Right.
I hate to use the term half, but that's how I thought of this movie. They had 4 years. 4 years. You'd think they'd have something better than this. Ghostbusters deserves better than this. You want to make a franchise, you had 2 movies in one. That's what killed Spider-Man 3. Do you remember Spider-Man 3?
Yeah.
You had the Venom storyline, and then you had the Sandman.
Right.
Save the Venom for another movie. Just focus on the Sandman.
And I could agree with you on that they tried to put too much into the movie.
Yeah. And that happened with the Dark Knight trilogy as well.
Yeah.
They Christopher Nolan did a better job of handling multiple villains, but just have one. Just have one. In radio, we're taught one thought, one break. I think some of these screenwriters, some of these filmmakers could learn something from that. Because again, there's nothing wrong with a coming-of-age story for Phoebe, because I think that they're kind of molding her into the star of the franchise.
Yeah.
Have a separate movie where she's trying to come of age, okay? It's okay. But save this Fire Master, Ice Master for a different movie. It didn't belong with this. They just tried to... All right, well, Phoebe's got to have a coming of age thing. So let's create this, and they add this, they add that, and they should have really thought about this more. I think it's just, again, these are just my opinions.
Right.
If you totally hate me for saying that, comment. Tell us what you think of it, because I think there was enough here for 2 movies, rather than try to cookie cutter and make one movie. You could have done 2 separate movies. That's just my opinion. I know you probably disagree.
No, I can see where there's definitely potential for 2 movies in this movie. I think I'm giving it a little bit more easier on, I think, how it worked out, other than the fact that it just dragged. Where your opinion is none of it really worked. I think it worked a little bit better than you think. Like you said, again, it definitely had its moments where it's dragged, and it could have been a scene or 2 less in certain areas of the movie. Could have tightened it up and gotten to the point quicker and moved the story along a lot quicker. What did you think of the performance of the original Ghostbusters again in this one?
Well, Bill Murray really didn't have much to do. I mean, he came in at the end, which is okay. I think he's semi-retired anyways. Dan Aykroyd, I think he was in it too much, to be honest. Again, working with the new and old, the old Ernie Hudson has his own business, where he has that lab. I thought that was kind of interesting. There were some interesting ideas. It was just not presented as well as it could have been, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And they were thrown in there, and the original two Ghostbusters movies, you could tell there was a lot of love there. I didn't feel that with this. I felt a little bit with Afterlife. There was paying tributes, all that kind of stuff. So I felt a little bit of it in that. There was none of that in this movie. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel any love for these characters.
Well, I mean, Afterlife, let's call it what it is. It was the whole movie was a love letter to Harold Ramis. So
Harold Ramis and Reitman's father as well.
Ivan Reitman hadn't died. Yeah.
That was his last thing before he died.
Yeah.
He was old and he was retired. Right. So it was father and son working together. I felt a little bit of love in that movie. I felt nothing like that in this movie. There was no love for the characters. They were just presented in a cookie cutter fashion.
Well, I'll disagree because I think they were used properly. Again, because you don't want a 2-hour movie of, Bill Murray said this, you don't want a 2-hour movie of 70-year-old guys running around catching ghosts. I think they were utilized properly as serving all of them in mentor capacities. Obviously, Winston in the new Ghost Lab, introducing our new crew to that and the new technologies and stuff like that. He had Ray kind of mentoring on being the encyclopedia, and then you had Bill Murray being Bill Murray, throwing pens at the fire god and finding his liquid courage when he decides to step up and help the team.
But again, I go back to what I said just a little bit ago. It could have been a separate movie just focusing on the Fire Master and the Ice Master clashing, good versus evil. It's a timeless storyline,
right?
And just make a separate movie about Phoebe. This would have been just focus on Phoebe in this movie, coming of age.
Yeah.
Because the next one's probably going to be another 3 or 4 years. So this was a good opportunity to focus on Phoebe, but create some other disaster. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a supernatural fantasy comedy. You could have done anything. Could have happened. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just save the Fire Master and the Ice Master for a different movie.
Right. I mean, again, you could have. You definitely could have.
I think that would have served the movie franchise better and would have served the audience better.
Fair enough. But I mean, back to the original crew, the scenes you do get to see them together, I don't think they haven't lost a step with each other. The way they talk with each other and the way they
it wasn't bad.
Fall right back into their old roles. Me and my brother always talk about it. If you really watch the acting between those guys, it's almost like they're a rock and roll band who just know each other, and you can really tell the chemistry between Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray when they're sitting there communicating with each other. And I still think that it had it definitely had that feeling in Afterlife. I still think
a lot better in Afterlife.
I think it carried over still. Maybe
not too bad. But again, I may be judging this harsher than others would. I just, if you want to keep building Ghostbusters as a franchise, that's what they decided to do when they had the all-female Ghostbusters. That didn't work. So let's go back to
the problem with the all-female Ghostbusters is that they lost all vision of what the Ghostbusters were and what they stand for. And that's why the movie, was as bad as it was. It had nothing to do with all-female crew. What it had to do was they completely lost all vision of what Ghostbusters was. Mm-hmm. I think even, if this new installment isn't as strong as Afterlife and obviously the other ones, it still keeps you in that Ghostbusters world.
Right.
It keeps you in that Ghostbusters, the magic that is the Ghostbusters, and that's what the 2016 movie didn't have. It didn't have that at all. So, I mean, I still think they're going in the right direction, even if the plot was weak at points and could have been done way better.
And made two different movies.
Yeah,
I honestly think it would have been a lot better to digest if there were two different movies.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, just on a more personal note, it's okay to have a strong female characters and it's okay to have strong male characters.
Yeah.
Why do we have to have weak male characters? You know,
But do we have weak male? I don't think Paul Rudd. Yeah, he's goofy. I don't think he's weak.
No,
and,
but
and
I mean,
Finn, I don't think he's weak at all.
He's kind of aimless. You know.
Well, he's also playing a teenage boy too at the same time.
Okay.
You know,
but she's very strong, and she proves she's strong. The male characters really didn't do as much other than the Firemaster eventually, who again was aimless, you know, finally stepping up and doing his thing. Have a completely strong male character with a completely strong female characters. It's okay to have both. You know, not have one fumble over the other. It's okay to have some comedic characters. Nothing wrong with that. But the main male and female characters should be very strong. And unfortunately, you didn't feel a lot of strength with Paul Rudd's character. Because he's the male lead. He's got, out of all the male characters, he's got the most screen time.
yeah. But I also, again, I understand what they were going for with him. He's kind of playing stepdad. I guess that's where I relate more because I have experience in that department.
Yeah.
And so him trying to tread the line between, all right, do I still be the buddy or do I, start being the dad? I relate to that 100%.
Oh, yeah,
But
But you're not acting like him, though. You're a lot stronger.
No. But I also understand how he would approach that. You know, I understood the character dilemma.
But there's a lot of young boys watching this movie. Okay, your son is watching this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really no strong male characters that he can look up to. When we were growing up, we had Bruce Willis. Die Hard. He was a strong male character, just an average guy in these situations. How did I get myself in these situations? He even says it in the movie. He's a good example, okay? He's a strong male character. There's not a lot of that anymore. You know, I'm just naming him off the top of my head.
Right. I personally thought the male characters in this movie were fine. And I think Finn and Paul Rudd did great jobs for what they're supposed to do. I thought they both came off strong.
I'm not talking about the performances. They did okay with what they had.
Yeah.
They just didn't do enough to really give the characters any love. There was not as much love for these characters as they have in the past. I just thought they could have just done two different movies. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. You could even make a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 movie story arc. Just make it fun to watch. Don't take it too seriously. Hugo Weaving didn't as Agent Smith in the Matrix movies. He was the only one that didn't take it too seriously.
Okay.
What do you think? Did you watch Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? Do you think it was fine the way it was? Or do you think it needed a little trim job like Adam? Or do you think it needed to have a lot of work in 2 different movies and you thought there was too much going on? Whatever your opinions are, we'd like to hear them too. Again, Scared for Reels, on not only here on YouTube, but we're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter X. Last words about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, Adam?
Again, I'm going to hold my ground here. I enjoyed the movie, and I'm really hoping that Jason Reitman gives us another one, and we continue with some more Ghostbusters stories.
Unfortunately, I would have liked to seen a coming-of-age story of Phoebe, because they had something there. It wasn't very well thought out, but they could have thought it out better and prepared it, written it better, presented it better. Have that movie, and then the second movie, have the Fire Master and the Ice Master. So, again, our opinions, we want to hear yours. Reach out to us, and we'll talk to you next time.
We'll see you next time on Scared for Reals.